Well, I'm really, really excited to have on this morning somebody who I've worked with for years now. So I can really say that I would call him a friend as well as a mentor and a coach. Gosh, we've been through some highs and lows. We were together all through COVID when, like all of us, we turned on our Zooms and went, what do we all do? We've gone through tears of happiness and joy, have we not? So yeah, it's really exciting. So, and today we are going to be talking about recruiting in your property business. Now, a lot of people are a bit fearful of this, so we're going to cover off all of those points: when to do it, how to keep them, all of those kind of things. So, Martin, for those who don't know you, please would you just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yes, absolutely, with pleasure. I'm Martin Riley, a business and leadership coach. And as you know, I'm the proud author and creator of the Business Jet Engine. And the whole point of that is most business owners, they're great at what they do. The problem is they're not experts in business. And so the Business Jet Engine is a super simplified approach to helping business owners really get up to speed and think and plan and grow their business like an expert, as simply, as stress-free as possible, so they're more profitable and ideally have more fun in the process.
Well, we definitely like the fun element, don't we? And guys, I wonder if you could do us a big favor. So we are obviously live, and I wonder if everyone would mind, anyone who it would be useful for them to have this information, if they could kindly ping 10 people, 6 people, and we can really encourage as many people as possible to really learn all these fantastic sort of informational activities that you can do to really help you hire A players. And yeah, I've certainly been blown away with it over a long term. So look, I'm just finding some more people to add on, and then we can jump straight in. I wanted to find someone specific, but here we go. There are a few. Okay, so I will ping them. Ping sent. Awesome. Okay, well, let's kind of jump into this, Martin, and look at when is the time to start hiring. Now, I know when I kind of came into this property world, it was really very much highlighted that we didn't want people to go from a job into another job. So it was all about automating, systemization, and a lot about hiring virtual assistants. And as you're aware, I'm a huge advocate of that. I love it. I have a business, the Viva Club, where I help people recruit virtual assistants from the Philippines. And my first taster was when I was about, I suppose, 6 to 8 months into my business. And it was quite overwhelming. I had 6 properties, 6 rent-to-rent service accommodation properties, and there was a lot of moving parts. It was going here, there, and everywhere. And I kept hearing this automation, systemization, and I was like, "There's no way that I have any idea to do that." I tried to use a Zapier or whatever, and it was too hard. And that's when I went to hire a VA. And so that was how I first got into it. And within her first role was to automate my business. I knew what I wanted, I just didn't know how to implement it. And that's where she helped me. So where do you see, Martin, this point at which people, should hire? Because it's so different for so many people and potentially in different industries as well.
Yeah, it's hugely important and such an art to get right. So let's not pretend it isn't. And it's one of those that really separates those out that achieve and those that don't. So I think we need to take a step back to kind of time management principles, because this is all about maximizing your time. And when I'm working with clients on being time efficient, time effective, and let's just add, strategic change, which is what particularly your group are all about. Strategic change is doing those things that really put you a long way ahead. This isn't incremental change, just small things that make a little difference. This is the things that put you in a significantly different place a year from now. When you are trying to achieve strategic change, it always takes time, money, or energy, or all of those not readily available. Otherwise, everyone could do it. You are trying to carve out what really doesn't exist. And that's what separates those that achieve it and those that don't. So let's start with that carving out time. So you've got to look at your time management, how you prioritize. And typically the way I start with clients is looking at the key tasks that they spend their time on and trying to look at some of the hours that they are putting into their day and separate those into sort of high value tasks, the ones that only they can do, the ones that need their real knowledge, their real specialism, their real insight. Then there's the medium value that they are good at, but others could be trained or with skill could do. And then there's the lower value task that really anyone shown how could do it. So having separated those out, I tend to start at the bottom. But with all three, what you're always trying to look at, and there's two acronyms. One is EAT or the other is DAD. You either eat this or DAD it, means the same thing. The first stage is you either eliminate the task, see could this actually be removed? Does it really have to take place? Is it adding any value to what I'm trying to achieve long term or not? And DAD is can I delete it? So we either eliminate it or we delete it. The second is, can we automate it? Save anybody doing it? Is there just a way of simplifying the system or automating it so no one has to get involved? It's a much more streamlined process. The final one is where you go, actually, do I need to transfer it to someone else or delegate it? Hence why we get eliminate, automate, or transfer, or delete, automate, delegate. They're the two acronyms. So it's when we get to that final stage going, this isn't worth my time to do it. I can generate far more income for my business by doing the things I'm best at. This needs to go to someone else. And often the simplest places to start are tasks at home. Things like cleaning, things like getting your shopping done, those small tasks, getting your gardening done, which can be hugely time consuming, but we may not think of as kind of business activities, but they sap our time. So it's always looking at what are the simplest, most cost-effective, cheapest thing to outsource elsewhere. And I'd love your views on this because I think you're probably even more expert. You've taken this to beyond an art form, haven't you?
I don't know about that. Yeah, but I totally agree. And anyone who's, I do 30 minutes free sessions with the Viva Club to basically explain this. And obviously a lot of this has come from you, Martin, is that, I suggest that people like you suggest to sit down and really write down exactly what they've done all day. And people tend to just have this business hat on. And I'm like, no, I want to know what you've done all day, especially like if I'm a mum, or whatever, you've got other businesses or you've got other things. What is it that you do, or other interests, for instance? You might be part of a golf club and you organise to go around different golf, clubs. And that involves a lot of organisation. It might be that you have to organise all your networking events. So my property networking events, for instance, I don't do any of it. I just go, I want to attend that, and my VA books it all for me. It's all done. Don't have to worry about it. Then in the diary, and then when it is the time, it's actually there written down. So all of these things take so much time, don't they? So yeah, I totally agree, Martin. I think it's a really key one. And I was really shocked again when I started off in the property world that, so many people even had, personal chefs. And when you look into it, it doesn't have to be that expensive. I mean, you've got Hello Eat now or whatever it is, haven't you? There's lots of other things. But absolutely. And I love those Eat and Dad. That is again, really great. I probably haven't concentrated on the eliminate so much. But actually I did do the, that quadrant, urgent, important, both ways.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit overwhelmed, and I'd done it with my husband, and I thought, it's ridiculous, Emma, you need to do that again. And I haven't done it for such a long time, and it was really liberating. I was like, look at all those that I'm just not even going to touch, and probably they should have been in the delete or eliminate button.
Yeah, that's the Stephen Covey 4 quadrants, isn't it? And for those that aren't familiar, I mean, his book, The 7 Habits, it's the grandfather of great personal development books. It still stands the test of time. But that section on prioritization is hugely beneficial, and it's such a great concept. So for those that don't know it, there's two axes. One is where something is urgent or not urgent, but the other is whether it's important or not important. And what you start to realize is all the tasks that you prioritize that are maybe important but not urgent now. They need to happen. So you need to schedule them in, but they don't need to be today or tomorrow. And then there's all those things you get sidetracked that are important to other people, particularly if you're a people pleaser, which is one of the things I found. All the things I placed as urgent, because someone said, I need this by tomorrow, and I would jump. And then I'd realize this actually, they've given me no warning that all I'm doing is empowering and enabling them to be inefficient, ineffective, and not plan their week, their month, their year. And I got much better at saying, no, actually, if you give me a week's notice or 2 weeks' notice, I could have done it, but sorry, I can't fit it in now. Yeah, or I'll get back to you if I can, when I can. I got much better at deleting, eliminating those aspects, yes.
And that's something that I've, seen with you. You do really walk the talk. And I know whether it's pricing or whether it's time or whether it's, the journey forward, whatever it is, you're really good at walking that talk. And I think sometimes we're so committed to something, aren't we? Like we're committed to writing down what we're doing on a daily basis, but then we don't always follow through. And I think that's the key for me, is when I'm talking to people and saying to them, okay, what exactly is it that you do on a daily basis? So and what would you like to do? And I think that's another key one, because the biggest change for me when I had somebody working for me, so when I had my first VA coming on board, and over time I've had more. But the biggest change, I suppose, in how I've been able to grow my business is the research that I've now been able to do. So I'm sure all of us, everyone here listening, those listening on YouTube, on Facebook Live, we're all here because we love learning. We're all learning junkies, aren't we? And what I do is I'm on the road quite often, chasing around after the kids or whatever, and I'll have, say, a podcast on in the background. And suddenly it'll mention a new app or a new website or a new thing. And you think, oh, that would be amazing for my business. But by the time you've got home, I can't even remember what it was about, let alone the name of it and all of those. So I love being able to do a voice note and just say, could you look up, this app? And I usually will say, give it 30 minutes research, look at all some other, look at 4 or 5 competitors, and then my VA already knows to put it into a spreadsheet where it literally has, the pricing, just a whole host of things that we put in. So then all I do is I spend 5 minutes just having a quick look, maybe opening up a few websites and getting a feel for it. But generally, if I believe that is something useful, I will then go back to my VA and say, and which one would you like to use? Because inherently I potentially won't even be using it, but I know it's something that could potentially grow and help our business. So yeah, I found that research side of things was a really big sort of game changer for me. So yeah.
And Emma, if I can just jump in there, because what you're saying is so important. It's knowing the things that really add value and those that don't. And the risk for all of us is we can also end up going down rabbit holes and getting sidetracked. And that's why I want to come back to this idea of, strategic tasks, strategic goals. And we really ought to do a whole one of these just on time management. But if I just throw in one last kind of time management tip, my favorite one is the 3 notes on a Post-it. And when you know clearly your strategic goals, the things you have to get done this week, this month, to move your business forward, what I try and do is the night before is I write out the 3 tasks that are going to take about 40 minutes to an hour, those chunky bits that will move me forward, or they're just something I have to do. For example, working with clients is non-negotiable. So it's not strategic, it's day to day, but it goes in those big tasks. I write those 3 on a Post-it, and then I write the 3 kind of nice to have, but they're those 15-minute things, that phone call, that email that has to go out, that form you've got to send in, or that little bit of research you've got to do. So I have those 3 nice to haves, and my whole day is structured around ensuring those happen. And typically my diary will always be showing those 3 things coming up each day that I have to get done, and the 3 nice to haves. And that's what drives my whole business. So even things like emails that aren't important to me get left. I'm not someone who clears my email inbox every day, or I'd never get any work done. I stay very focused on what drives my business and what serves my clients. So not getting distracted is key. So the 3 notes on a Post-it the night before is really useful, because you also hit the day running.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I've got a quadrant that I like using where the top left-hand corner is my 3 goals for the year. The top right is my 3 goals for the for the 90-day stretch. The bottom left is the 3 goals for the week. and the bottom right is the 3 goals for the day. And what's very interesting is it goes from kind of real big ideas down to very practical activities. I really enjoy seeing at what stage it goes from big idea into much more practical activities. So yeah, I love that. And also, interestingly, from your perspective, things like emails and all those nice to haves, I get that into a situation now where my VA pretty much takes all of those slacks, so all of that kind of stuff. So even, yeah, sort of organizing these, you know, a lot of kind of research into finding letters, you know, so if I'm looking for a purchase lease option or a business to buy, she kind of does all of those things. And now I do find with ChatGPT, there's been this massive jump in what she can do for me, because whereas before, you know, she's an awesome, she's a very intelligent lady, but you know, she doesn't want to be having the responsibility of giving it, you know, advice or anything like that. That's not something in the remit that she would want to do. But with ChatGPT, she just asks it and then I just check it. So yeah, so I really love that. Well, let's kind of jump on then. So we've come to that stage where we think, oh no, so sorry. I just wanted to ask, do you think it's better to be really, really overwhelmed and hire, or see it coming but maybe not be financially able and hire? And just as a caveat, that's why I like VAs, because they are so reasonable. But yeah, what's your kind of feeling on that? Because I think that is something that people do tend to struggle with, especially if we're entrepreneurs and we're kind of control freaks.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't wait till you're overwhelmed, because it makes the task even harder, because even finding someone, even delegating, even training takes time, money and energy. It's a strategic activity to get to onboard somebody properly and make sure they're up to speed properly. Because when we get on to sort of looking at once you've hired someone, how do you train them? The worst thing to do is just throw them in at the deep end and say, just get on with it, sink or swim. Because everyone's going to be frustrated and disappointed, and typically you'll end up going back and micromanaging them. So I would try and be somewhere in the middle, but start early. And that's why I like picking off those easy tasks first, you know, particularly the home tasks, which tend to be the cheapest to solve, cheapest and simplest, where you can go from, you know, going to the supermarket to doing it online, or getting someone else to do the ironing, to do the shopping, to do the cleaning, to do the gardening, to get those things sorted elsewhere.
Ironing. So. Do people iron? I just buy clothes that don't require ironing. I take it back a step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wearing five shirts a week too, you know, so I had my shirts done before lockdown. Not so much now, because we're much more casual. But when I was wearing work shirts every day, yeah, absolutely, I got mine done.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's jump in then. So obviously I, you know, love what you do, and as a process, I have brought what we're talking about today into my Viva Club, into helping people recruit an A player as far as a virtual assistant goes. And obviously this works for whomever you want. So whether it's an operations manager, whether it's, you know, somebody to help you with your lettings, whatever it is within your property business. So where do we start? So we've now made that decision, right? I can either feel things are really getting on top of me, I know I need to get some help. Where do we start, Martin?
The first place we start is knowing that actually if we don't get it right, we'll make things worse than better. And everyone will end up frustrated, fed up. You'll lose faith that you can actually delegate to somebody, and that you have to hold everything to yourself. And typically, you know, people doing this kind of thing tend to be very driven. To some degree, they're perfectionists, so they tend to hang on to things or over control things. So the first thing is, A players love working with A players. If you hire anything less, you're going to end up very frustrated, and so will the person working for you, because you will micromanage everything. So the first thing is to recognize we've got to get this right and do it well. A mishire in a sort of big organization can cost that business to 20 to 30 times that person's salary.
Wow.
When you think of if there's damage to the client base, if other team members leave, if they do something that creates damage within the internal systems, if you think of the lost growth opportunity, it's if you have someone for 2 years and it doesn't work out and you have to start all over again, and they were key to your growth plans, say they're a top salesman or etc., it can really set you back. So you add up all those costs plus the recruitment costs, etc., and your time, your money, your effort. It can cost a huge amount. So the first thing is commit to doing it well. And the classic pitfall, the classic mistake when people hire is they get some options, they get some CVs or some candidates, and they go through them, ask them some clever questions, hoping they're going to ask the question to reveal are they up for it or not, like, why do you want to work with me? And then they choose what appears to be the best of that bunch. So the question I love to ask is, if you see a car with its left indicator flashing, what does that mean?
Hopefully it's telling you it wants to turn left.
But is that all it means? Is that all it could mean?
Somebody might have forgotten that it's on.
Yeah.
It might be stuck on. If it's anything like my car.
Yeah, it was hazard lights, but one's broken.
Yeah.
It could mean anything. All you know with absolute confidence is that the light is flashing, is the bulb works. That's the only thing you actually know. And somebody good at interview questions, when you talk to them and you like them and they answer you well, all you know is they're likable and they answer questions well. If you want someone who's likable and answers good questions or answers questions well, you found your person. But the normal sort of recruiting process where you get CVs, ask some questions and hire the best of the bunch is not good enough. Because would you ever buy a second-hand car based on the tech spec in the window that tells you about the car, what the salesman says? Would you buy it based on those? No. Most people would take it for a test drive and go, I drive down this bumpy street, or I have to fit these goods in the back, in the boot or in the estate back. I've got to check these things fit. My stepfather used to play the cello. He'd always take his cello to buy a new car.
Wise plan.
So you need to have some simple but effective ways of testing your potential candidates very simply and quickly. So let's go into a bit more detail, if that's okay, how we do that.
Please do.
And what I do is firstly break it down into there's 3 essential qualities you need to be looking at. And incidentally, these are 3 skills or qualities any entrepreneur needs to develop. The first is technical know-how and competence. You have to build the skills of your craft. And the second is drive, attitude, motivation, character qualities. So I personally, this is a whole sidetrack. When people say attitude is everything, it's seriously important, it's foundational, but it's only one of 3. So you have to build technical know-how, technical skills and competence. And the third is you've got to be good at relationships, people skills, teamwork skills. And if you're an entrepreneur, your network is the third of the holy trilogy of being a great entrepreneur. Who you have around you is absolutely central. So you need your team members to have those 3 same skills, or they're going to frustrate you. They have to be great technically, have really good drive and attitude, and they've got to be good at communication skills, people work, teamwork skills, because they're going to work with you for a start. And they're going to be working with others potentially. So when you've got those 3 areas, you then go, what are the 3 to 5 mission critical skills or qualities I need in each? Do they need to be really good at following process? It might be one of them. They've got to be a demon at using Excel or some other bit of software. Or do I want someone who will always go the extra mile, someone who's good at early mornings? And in relationships, do I need someone who has natural charm and ability because they're going to be introducing me to a lot of potential people? What are the teamwork skills? Do they have to be really good at concise emails? Do they have to be good at written skills, phone skills? So, for example, this filtering process and testing people, having written out those qualities, I will then say, okay, there's 3 main stages when you're trying to get the right person you're going to work with, whether it's a VA, whether it's a subcontractor, whether it's an employee, whether it's a freelancer, whatever it is. So, for example, if you needed that person really good at process, who follows detailed instructions, you might say in your advert, send your CV on 2 sheets of A4 paper. It's got to be double-sided. We want you to use 11-point Adobe Caslon typeface. I'm not sure you can ask for photographs anymore, but back in the day, you might say we want a 3 by 2 centimeter black and white photograph, 2 millimeters from the left-hand corner. Most of your candidates are going to say, they don't need that. I'll send what I always send. But if you've given them specific instructions, or you might say in a covering letter, tell us this, and this, most of your candidates won't. One or two will actually nail every point. It already shows you those will follow detailed instructions.
And I probably wouldn't even apply.
And that's what you're trying to do, is scare off those who would go, well, I don't want to do that, because when they work for you, guess how they're going to show up. But if you ask them, how are you at following process? Oh, yeah, I'm really good. You know, most people will tell you the answer.
That you want to hear, absolutely.
You know, when you fly to America, the green card used to say, I don't know if it still does, are you here as a terrorist? Are you here to deal in drugs? And there's one other crazy thing. You know, what are you going to put, yes or no? Oh. Yeah, I'm here as a drug dealer and a terrorist. You know, you've got to put, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, that's
so anyway, you know, you've got to test. And then, so there's that first stage. You've got to filter people out quickly, going, the skills that are easiest to test, that show up most frequently. Or, for example, if you need someone to do sales calls, you might just send a reply, we'd love to talk to you, please make contact to arrange an interview. You don't give them any other information. They have to use their initiative to make contact with you, and you can see how well that they do that. And some people, without absolutely all the information, will go, oh, I don't know what to do, and do nothing. So you filtered them out already. Do you sort of see the gist of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a sort of a simple but clever process, and yeah, we'll keep coming back to it. But I have put the link in to directly to Martin's website, where you can get free downloads of this as well. So it's yeah, incredibly useful. But when you've talked about those three qualities up front, the technical know-how, attitude, and relationships, so presumably, you know, you're definitely going to have some roles that are really weighted in certain areas, presumably, because you might have a, you know, a technical kind of more geeky role, more you know, where perhaps relationships is going to be less. So that presumably would be the relationship with you and the communication, even though it might be more email. When I'm thinking about my my fabulous VA, it's all about WhatsApp. I mean, we've tried multiple other things, but when I need to know that she's seen the message, and WhatsApp is the only one that, you know, brilliant, she's seen the message, I can let that go, I know she's now doing something about it. So yeah, presumably each of those, is there a way of kind of splitting that out? Is that how you kind of think of it, this three sort of separate areas?
Exactly as you've said, that's a really good example. And yes, there will be a weighting, in which case, say it's all technical, you may have 5 to 7 mission critical things that they need to be good at. But I would encourage anyone never to dismiss the other 2. You will come up with 3 to 5 that really matter. And if you're not thinking hard enough, then you're not recruiting well enough, because there's always 5 drive, motivational, attitude, character qualities. You may even assume, well, of course people have that, I wouldn't hire anyone that doesn't, but write them down. And just make sure, have you really evidenced that? Have you really seen that they will go that extra mile if that's important to you, or if they've got to be good at early mornings? Make the meeting, make your first contact with them an early morning contact. Yeah. For example, there's a client I worked with who, they knew a lot of their candidates would come from London, but they're based on the South Coast. And they wanted people who would be there 9 o'clock every day. So they made sure they set their interviews for 9 o'clock. And of course, 70% of the candidates coming from London said, could we make it 11? I can get an easier train. Guess what's going to happen as the job goes on? For the first 3 months, they'll be coming at 9 o'clock. Yeah. But they needed someone in at their desk at 9 o'clock for that role. So it filtered out a lot of people immediately.
Yeah, amazing. And okay, so just as far as you know, the sheets that you share and how they work that out, do you want to, I'm just opening it so I can maybe share it and you can talk us through. Is that the right time to do that, Martin?
Yeah, absolutely. Be good. Nice to give people a visual.
So obviously, for those of you who are not who are on Clubhouse, you can find these on the link in that's at the top here. And we are looking at the CDR staff hiring spreadsheet. And let me just share this. Oh, Oh, yeah. Has that worked? Can you just see that, Martin?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So there's three groups there: the competence or technical skills, the drive and motivation, and the relationships. And what we can see is two candidates, candidate A and candidate B. And also there's two, in those two columns, there's what's been evidenced, how they've performed currently, and what we think their potential, this is a best guess, what we think their potential will be in, say, 6 months' time. Because we may have a candidate who doesn't have the skills yet, but what we need to do as part of our process is, if someone is going to need some training, we're going to need to show them how to do some stuff. Part of that hiring process should be, let's just spend 20 minutes me showing you how to do something in this particular area. And let's see how we get on. Do you pick it up quickly? Are you picking it up and then doing it? Or are you just going, yeah, I think I've got that, or just looking blank? So you get a good sense, does this person learn quickly and ask intelligent questions, and I enjoy training them and they work well being taught by me? So there's what we've evidenced, how well they did it now, and the potential, how well we think we'll do it in 6 months' time. So, for example...
Sorry, Martin, would that be part of the interview process, or might that be part of a task that you would send over? How might you evidence?
Okay, so let's go back a little bit before I talk through the spreadsheet in detail. I try and do this testing to find out have they got the skills in 3 phases. The first is a quick filter before I really spend too much time engaging with them. Say, for example, like the application process or how I ask them to make contact should filter out some of those easier skills to filter. There's then a second where what I would typically do is let's see how we get on. Let's have a chat with each other about what we're both after, what you're looking for, what I'm looking for. Let's get to know each other. That should start to test some of the relationship skills and the drive skills, by what time we've set it, etc. And none of these have to be long. You know, that can be just a 20-minute conversation, half-hour conversation. And then the third and final stage should be, let's do some work together. Let me get to know you. You know, if I want to come back to you, having seen some other candidates, you're the person I like most, let's do some stuff together. And that's when I'll go through more of the technical skills, but it will reveal teamwork skills, personality skills as well. So I kind of tend to do it in 3 stages. And that kind of final testing work together stage doesn't need to be more than an hour. But just remember, you wouldn't marry someone based on a phone call, based on a Zoom interview. You know, you'd want to spend some time with them, seeing how you really get on in real life. And an employee or getting someone to work with you can be a bit like a marriage. We can often spend more time with our work colleagues than we do our partners.
Absolutely.
So to come back to your question, can you remind me what it was?
It's how you would evidence this current and potential. So I see that made it much clearer now, hasn't it? So obviously the application process, you know, that's if they haven't adhered to your processes, then that you already know that they're one step ahead. You've had a chat, which, you know, presumably will have some of these points, but when you get to this, let's do some work together, within that hour, if you're spending, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour, you know, teaching something simple, or, you know, whatever it is that is important within that, it might be if it's relationships, it might be just testing questions, you know, if it's, there's a whole host. It depends again, doesn't it? Going back to whether it is the competencies, the technical know-how, the attitude, or the relationships, as to what you would concentrate on during that time.
Yeah. So just to recap the core process, you take your competence, your drive, your relationships, you write 5 to 7, 3 to 5 to 7 mission critical skills. And then you think about the tests that are going to be in each phase. So you've written down some tests that should show most of this. And this list gives you a reminder to say, will these tests evidence all those things? It could be you've got 4 or 5 tests that are going to reveal most of these qualities. And that's what you're always looking for, tests that show more than just one thing. And then the point of the spreadsheet is to score them out of 10. How well did they perform? 10, they couldn't have been better. 5, they were just good enough. 0, they showed no evidence of that skill or ability or quality. So it's making us not just be emotional and go, well, I really liked them. It's making us go, what have I evidenced? What have I really seen? I don't want to fantasize here, because that'll get me in trouble, and I've seen it so many times. So we then put the scores down, and the spreadsheet averages out for each area, where you get the average score out of 10. And then you get an average score of all 3 areas at the bottom. So that candidate gets a score out of 10. And this is where we bring in the A, B, C, etc. player system. I think most of us, or many of us, have heard of A players, B players, C players. Obviously, A players are the best. B players are almost there. C players are quite good. D players, maybe less so. Now, I want to bring an idea from psychology into this and put another filter on top, because there's a rule of thumb in psychology that if you took the whole population and sent them for therapy, a third will get better, a third will stay the same, and a third will get worse. Why will a third get better? Because essentially they have that leadership in them, that self-leadership. If they need something needs changing or doing, they take full ownership and responsibility for it. They go, if something needs doing, it's down to me. I'll get it done. And that means if they're in therapy, they go, if that needs changing, it's up to me. I need to do it. And your A players will do that, and your B players are pretty close to it. B players want to be the best. They're just not quite there yet. Your C players, they're the ones who won't change. They're sort of loyal, they're reliable, but they need quite a lot of hand-holding. But typically when you want something really driven with initiative, they'll talk about it. They'll want to do it. They'd love to do it. They'll talk some more about it. They're your friend down the pub who's talked about traveling the world for 10 years but never gone. Meanwhile, your A player has planned it for a year, gone around the world, got back, and your C player says, it's a real shame you didn't go to Kathmandu. But then you're kind of like armchair critics. Your C minuses and below, they're the people who often through unfortunate circumstances in their past have become the victims or dependents of life. If you paid me more, if you gave me a better computer, if it wasn't such a rainy day, if only the government had done something different, I could have got the job done. And they're the ones who will always need you to handhold them. It will always be your problem that they didn't get it done. So we really want to avoid C minuses or D players, because they're in that category who are going to drain us the most.
Wow, that's really kind of enlightening, isn't it? Because I think that there are times when, as a, say, entrepreneur, you think in a certain way, and there can be frustrations when other people perhaps don't do that. And even, you know, perhaps your friends and your family and all of those kind of things. And that kind of gives a really good indication that, you know, some people are just never going to change like that. There's no motivation for them to do that, to change, but it doesn't mean they don't have a place. It doesn't mean they're bad or wrong or anything like that. It's just different. And that, yeah, really interesting.
And that's why both hiring and going forward, we need to score their potential too. We need to take a best guess, because if someone isn't performing at an A or isn't scoring at an A right now, I want to build this into how we review and develop and train people. But we do need to look at what's their potential, because we need to give everybody a chance. Not if we haven't hired them. We need to get people who look like they're an A now or will be in 6 months. But down the line, we need to give everybody a chance. If we'd hired someone, we need to go, everybody needs a chance to step up. And I kind of work on the 3 strikes and out. Let's talk about it. So maybe, is that clear enough for now? And then we'll get on to how you develop and train people.
Yeah.
Is there anything more on the hiring?
Yeah, just ask one more question on this. So on this particular model that we've got here, we've got candidate A that is kind of an A player now and will kind of always be an A player, whereas candidate B is a B player currently, but you believe has got a potential for an A star. So in this scenario, who would you be looking to hire? Is it somebody who's you know, so I suppose again it depends on the role, but you know, you've got basically a really steady Eddie there, or somebody who's maybe very aspirational. And again, I suppose when it comes down to like hiring virtual assistants, especially in a property world, I know my very first lady that I hired, I got on with her because she was quite entrepreneurial. But it meant that after I think it was just over a year, she went and started her own business. Nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. But it might be something that you have to consider for the future. Is it better to have a really great steady Eddie rather than this kind of, but if you want them to grow with you and really help push your business, then maybe they could come with you.
And that depends on the overarching factors. But the example you've just given was exactly what this reflected. I know it's a sort of a hidden example, but the two candidates who were genuine in this, that was exactly that. One was going to hit the ground running harder and faster, but probably sooner was going to be wanting to go off and do their own thing. But the second was less ready now, but was very steady, very bright, very determined, and would almost certainly want to stay with the job long term for as long as possible, but was very meticulous in how they did things. They were a slower learner, but very thorough, really trusted pair of hands. So long term, candidate B potentially would be the better bet, unless you need someone now who's right up to speed and ready to go. Yeah. So in the end, you always have to weigh these things up, what's right for you and what's right for them as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I suppose also who else is in your team? I know when I took on my fabulous current VA, I already had quite a good team, and I just literally needed somebody who didn't really need that much other than be able to do some, basic admin stuff. And over the 18 months that she's been with me, she's just developed incredibly. And so that's been an interesting one. Initially, I just needed someone, and it didn't matter so much, whereas I've been able to see that potential, and she's just stepped up to that. So yeah, really interesting. Okay, so it might sound like it's worth now seeing how this isn't just a hiring process, is it? This is actually a continuation on, I suppose how to keep people on track as well, and how to grow them. How does this look to you as a all-encompassing use for your staff?
Yes, exactly, and that's so key. In the end, this grading system is about two-way conversations. This isn't meant to be how do you reprimand people. It's how do you keep people engaged. And the way I get clients to use it is, this is a way of thinking through in advance. I'm going to have a conversation with my team member. Let me just think through how I think they're doing. Doesn't have to be done. You can sit with them and just go, let's talk this through together, because in the end, the scores are subjective. But you ask, how well do you think you are doing technically out of 10 for what you're paid, the job you're doing, the time you've been trained? How well out of 10 do you think you're doing? 10 couldn't be better, 5 just well enough, 0 not very well at all. You both come up with your scores, discuss them and agree on a score, but in the end, the score doesn't matter. What does, in the end, is actually what's the gap between, say, a 7 and a 10? What's the missing 3? That highlights, well, actually, to get you to a 10, these are the 1, 2 or 3 things I would love you to work on. So when you score the competence area, the drive, motivation, character area, the relationships area, the teamwork, people skills, etc. When you have the 3 scores for each area, you might say, well, okay, say it's a 7, 7, 7. But let's look at one thing in each area for you to work on in the next 3 months that will make the biggest difference to getting you to a 10. Now, the point here is an A player may be a little disappointed they're not an A, although interestingly, A players and B players tend to underscore themselves and undervalue themselves. C players and below tend to overscore themselves and overrate themselves.
I love that.
But your typical A player will be thrilled that you're giving the time to help them develop. They may be a little bit, oh, I wish I was an A if I'm not an A yet. But they will want to know, and they will normally pick that up and run with it and be really motivated and want to know how to get to an A. They are crying out for that attention from their team members or employers to show them how to be at their best, because that's what A players are. They want to be the best.
How wonderful to be called an A player as well. I think that's pretty cool. What do you do about any disparities between, let's say I say to you, well, Martin, I think I'm a 9, and you're there going, I think you're a 6. Is that...
Okay, well, there's quite a big gap, but I would see, can we, between our discussions, say, well, maybe it's a 7, and if you won't come down to that and can't see the things, but if I can tell you the 3, 4, 5, 6 things that are missing, or just show you what they are. If you can't see them and can't see how they matter, then I've got to be concerned about our future together, because I'm saying these things are really mission critical.
And I suppose what you have there as well is, because you're so specific in these tasks and what they are, and presumably now we're talking about, you know, weekly, monthly, quarterly reviews or whatever we're at, because they're already there, and they would be measurable at this point, because presumably you've discussed about the sales level, or you've discussed about the, you know, the social media that we've been putting out for property, or you've discussed how you're you know, I don't know, filling out forms for the lettings or whatever. I suppose at that stage, you've seen that things are either right or wrong.
Yeah. I mean, just to give a slightly personal example, with my daughter working in a sweet shop as a student job, she was shown exactly how the sweet should be packaged. It was a very traditional sweet shop. But my daughter insisted on doing it her way because it was quicker and simpler. And I tried to express, you have to do it the way the owner wants. They've done this for years, and there's a reason they're doing it that way. You can't suddenly come in and just poo-poo it. But she wasn't going to see it. And so it didn't work out because, you know, as a teenager, she was very bright but rather stubborn thing. But that's just a simplified example of, you can end up with someone who's like that. No, they just don't want to do it your way for whatever reason. And that's going to frustrate you when you know it needs to be done. There's a bigger reason, a bigger picture. Now, a member of staff who can explain carefully why there's a better way is worth their weight in gold. Rather than just, no, I want to do it my way because I want to do it my way, even though it doesn't work for your brand or your systems.
So are you saying then with this, you know, whole kind of system then, that inherently this is the blueprint for their career? So it's kind of like you share with them, presumably when they're onboarded, look, this is where I was at. I felt that you had these skills. I believe that we could grow these skills. You know, this is going to be on the shared drive, only between us, obviously. And this is what we will come back to, and there will be, you know, the follow-up notes from each potential meeting. Is that how you see this? It's a working document.
The better. Yeah, and with all my systems, it's about keeping it as simple as possible. I do not want super onerous annual appraisals that nobody wants to do because they take so much time. You're simply having a meaningful conversation, but it gives it the structure to say, if there's 3 areas that you could improve in, what are they? And say, for example, just simplifying, say someone's a junior in a role and they want to get to the midweight, or they want to get to a senior. You go, scored as a junior, you've got to a 9 out of 10. You're an A player. We can't get you to a higher level junior. Let's now look at where you need to get to be a midweight. And then you get the pay increase attached to that. These are the things in the technical areas, in the drive areas, in the relationships areas. I want you spending more time with clients. These are the 3 things to do with client relationships you have to improve. Or these are the 3 technical competencies that in 6 months or a year's time will entitle you to move up to that level on that pay, etc. And that's how you engage people in the longer term. This is where you are now. Here are the career possibilities.
I can hear it, darling. I can hear it. Slides and a box.
Sorry for the interruption.
we all love life going on too. So yes, it becomes that career progression, and we've got to check it's engaging, that they want it too, because if they don't, it's good to know. And one of my things, if someone doesn't want to be an A player with you in the end, and you've given the opportunity and it's just not for them, they can't achieve it or they don't want it, help them go and be an A player somewhere else. Why should anybody be in a job in which they do not thrive? So I'm not a hatchet man. This is leadership should be an act of love. Let's help people perform at their best, thrive, be enriched, love what they do. And if it's not with you, help them find it elsewhere.
Amazing. I love that. And another thing that we haven't touched on, which I'm, I really enjoy, and I think it would be a great discussion, because I know we don't necessarily have the same views on it, is personality testing. So I'm a huge fan of that, especially when you're working with people remotely, because obviously there isn't necessarily this real personal relationship that you can have. So I know that, you know, my fabulous VA, hers is one of her personality testing is all about sort of time and words. So I'm always really trying to be very quick in responding, and they're usually just, you know, very quick things to respond to, and I'll be really kind of flowery in my wording. And I'm, you know, I genuinely am really appreciative, but I know for her that makes her feel valued. Where are you at with this kind of personality testing?
So a lot of people are huge fans of them, and a lot of people build their careers offering them. And so I don't want to remove the value. They do have a place, and I can see that in the right place, in the right time, they have huge value. I just want to cover what I think are the caveats, because I like to go as quickly and simply to the root cause of issues, or to the simplest ways of testing. If I want to know if I can get on with them, I'd rather do a couple of tasks with them than go kind of round the houses to find out, could I get on with them? Where that really isn't possible, or we're trying to do things en masse and we can't do that with enough people, but I'd rather send some remote tests, but I like to evidence them. There is a value, and they do elicit responses. I think sometimes my caveats are people can see through the responses they need to give sometimes, and sway their results. I think the other risk is that you can over stereotype and over generalize people based on them, and people can end up saying, I'm an XYZ, I'm a this type, and that's all I am. And it's not a reflection of our true potential. All it means is we have a bias towards. It doesn't mean people have no ability, no potential to develop an ability in an area. That said, after that, yes, they do have value. But if I can test something more directly, more quickly, I'd rather do that first. So take those aside. After that, then they have a huge value if that's still the best way forward to test or find out more about someone.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think of that view, and you may well, you know, have perfectly valid.
I mean, you know, I definitely feel like all things, you know, they're not always going to be relevant, but I think you have a really deep understanding of your processes, for instance. So I could follow your processes, but I'm still going to have certain doubts. I know for a fact that from a lot of historical, I don't read people that well necessarily. So as you know, I've gone down a path where I really shouldn't have gone down in relationships with people in business, because I tend to see the really good in everyone. I just kind of, that's where I'm at. So I don't always see, and I'm easily kind of hoodwinked, I suppose. So for me, having those personality testings is, even if maybe there's some things that, you know, aren't there, you can at least know how to keep that person happy, I suppose. But it does have to be a kind of a two-way thing as well. Yeah, I suppose it's just another arrow in the bow, so to speak. I would never expect people to solely hire on it, but I do know I like Dan Hill. If you don't watch his podcast, I'd definitely go and watch them. One of the things that he does is he uses Roger Hamilton's you know, talent dynamics, and he will only hire VAs on the mechanic side. And again, you know, that's fair. Is that completely what you should do? I don't think I wholly agree with that, but it is, you know, if you wanted to be really specific in your choosing of somebody and you have these parameters, well, those are your parameters, aren't they? So yeah, I do totally agree. For me, I suppose it's just those kind of little bit of extra backup, because I always feel slightly uncertain in those kind of areas, and I have inherently hired, and I suppose especially my UK hires, they have come from a long line of recommendations. So people have already worked with them. And for instance, my current operations manager, he comes from an army background, and he runs his own business. His wife's retired. His wife's still working. He's basically retired, but sits at home being bored. So he, like, every part of that is like, wow. So, you know, we'll be having conversations and I can ask him advice. Yeah, Graham, what do you think I should do here? And he'll be able to go, well, I think you should do that while, you know, changing the beds or whatever. So it's, yeah, I suppose for me, the personality testing is just another additional thing just to add in.
I think that's a really valid argument. I'm sold. Yeah, I totally agree with all your points. I think they're very good ones. And with that in mind, I mean, for example, I've even seen some incredibly accurate astrological charts. I mean, I had one done for me, and I couldn't believe how accurate it was in describing me. So yes, I think we need to bear in mind, in the end, it's not me. It's a summary, it's a stereotype, a generalization, but they can be remarkably accurate. So yes, I think it's fair play if it adds more to your armory to help you make a good decision, particularly if you're not especially in tune with or confident in your assessment of people's character. Yeah, why not? Yeah, I'm sold. I think that's a good argument for it.
And I did.
Well done, Emma. I'm not easily swayed on that one.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, I mean, I think any kind of relationship, it's useful to at least know in advance. And certainly when I have people that I coach who are partners, especially marital partners, I always get them to do the personality testing, because then they suddenly come back the next month and go, oh, that's why I feel upset when he does that, or that's why I don't feel valued when she does that. And actually, sometimes just a hand on the shoulder makes you feel valued. And those are kind of the things that I really like in that kind of relationship. Obviously, we're talking about hiring, so that's slightly different. But again, all of these things can be put in place. Look, I'm looking at the time, and I'm really aware of sort of covering everything off here. Is there anything that you think we haven't covered off before we start to bring this to a close, Martin?
Yeah, and for me, it's just the real risk of making assumptions. My whole process is to stop people making assumptions and just assuming that something is true because it should be true. And the example I want to give is a client who should have known better, who got a little bit sloppy in the hiring process because they'd done it so well, and they got a bit lazy. And they hired someone to do cold sales calls. And it was the morning that person was in place, contract signed. And remember, you're emotionally invested at that point, and you put a lot of time into getting them in seat, in place. They found out that person had a fear of using the phone, a phobia of using the phone.
Oh, no.
It can be that bad. Someone will apply for a job for which they have absolutely no confidence or competence. So don't assume just because this is a sales cold calling role, every candidate applying will be up for cold sales calls. You need to test. The simplest thing he should have done, and he knew better, was when they came in to do the test, here's a list of 10 people to call in the next half hour, because that's the job. Simple to test.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it is. It always feels like, you know, for you, it's, you know, you see things so clearly, and that's why I really love this process. And that's why we recommend this process, because for me, it really is like a brain mash. I just, you know, it's really very overwhelming. Whereas I really like at the end, you just put in a few figures and then you look at the bottom and it's like, it literally tells you, even if your heart is maybe erring towards one over the other, it's to then really come and look at yourself and think, well, what is it that's attracting me to that person? It may be those old, you know, ingrained negative elements that are attracting you to them. And so it's, yeah, I just love the fact that when you look at that piece of paper and you've got those numbers written, that you are given a yes or no. This is very, very clear.
And that's such a great point. And if your heart and your gut is saying, actually, this really is the person I'd like, but the numbers don't look good, then go back and look at those scores that aren't good and get them to come back and do some more with you in those areas. Because they're going to be the real acid test. And if then they don't perform, go in with your eyes wide open going, well, they're so strong in these other areas. I'm going to consciously agree that's not what they're best for. So you manage expectations, but at least you go in with your eyes open.
I love it.
So you know, gut feel, heart are all important things there. but it's just to try and bring some rationality to it. And it's just back to that car indicator. Don't assume because it's the left indicator's going, they are going to turn left.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I think, yeah, going back, yeah, the whole gut thing, I don't necessarily follow that. I need a bit more concrete, and this is where your systems give it to us. So they're amazing. Well, look, Martin, tell us where we can find you. Obviously, you've got your book. I really highly would recommend it. I use it regularly with Martin. It's and in fact, my book that I'm writing, I have followed a bit of what he does. You can either do a quick dive into your business, and I've done many quick dives, or you can do a real deep dive into your business and really see where you need to work on your business to help it move forward. It's an incredibly powerful book. Yeah, what anything else, Martin, where people can help, where you could help them?
Yes, if they go to the businessjetengine.co.uk website, there's some free tools they can download, or on the homepage there's my socials, or they can sign up to an email newsletter to stay in touch. But yes, I do one-to-one coaching. I've got a group online membership that helps people really get their business model straight and their annual priorities figured out and accomplished. So there's lots of different ways I work with people at different price points, starting from the book on Amazon, which is very affordable, right up to the Rolls-Royce one-to-one coaching service.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, Martin, that has been really fantastic. I've got a whole page of notes, as I always do from you. There's always new nuggets to take and to learn. So I really, really appreciate that. So guys, as I've said, we've got the link at the top. I'll also put the link into wherever you're watching. If this is on YouTube, I will also put a link down below to Martin. And then, of course, if you did need a VA, do come and find me as well. Theviva.club, VIVA.club. Yeah, so fantastic. We're back again next week, and I've completely forgotten who that is. Who is it? It's a really great person, as they all are, but I've completely forgotten. Anyway, I'll advertise it. Really fantastic person next week. Remember, guys, to come and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Emma Howitt Pure Abodes, where we take these videos. There'll be the long video, but then we'll break it down into shorts as well, just to make that easier for you to use. Okay, guys. Well, Martin, again, really, really appreciate it. Any kind of closing comments?
No, just been really enjoyable being with you. So thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. Well, look, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.